Okay, so today we're going to be discussing the poem We Real Cool and the song Stay Free. And disclaimer, this is my second time recording this. I didn't know the mic wasn't on the first time, so hopefully this will go smoothly. And also, I apologize for the watermark in the middle of the screen. I can't get rid of it unless I pay for this. But let's get right into it. Okay. So I'll kind of start by doing an overview of both the poem and the song. I'll start with the poem, which is on the left. It's called We Real Cool, and it's by Gwendolyn Brooks. It was written in 1959 and published in 1960. And Gwendolyn Brooks, she's a poet and an author, a teacher as well, and also a lifelong resident of Chicago. And basically the poem, if I were to sum it up in one sentence, it's about 7 kids who are kind of mischievous and are presumably ditching school, or they were kicked out of school, or they left school altogether to go play pool in the pool hall, or in a pool hall, specifically the Golden Shovel, as you can see on the left. And then a little bit about the song. The song is called Stay Free, and it's off the 1978 Clash album called Give 'Em Enough Rope. The main songwriters on the song were Joe Strummer, Mick Jones, Paul Simonon, and Topper Headon. A little bit about the Clash. They are a London band formed in 1976, and they were part of that first punk wave that captivated the world in the late 70s and early 80s. And again, just kind of like a one-sentence summary of the song, it's about a kid who the band knows, or a band member knows, who gets himself into trouble. That's basically just the gist of that song. So today we're going to look at 3 ways that these 2 pieces of art are similar. Number 1, they're written from an outside perspective, and I'll kind of go into more explanation about each of these when we get there. Number 2, they're both about young people. That's kind of the main theme, the main general theme at least. They're about young people and the trouble that they get into, and just kind of the livelihood and the stereotypes of young people. And then number 3, they can be interpreted as cautionary tales. At least that's how I interpret them. And they are presented very differently, but again, I'll get into that a little later. So let's jump right into number 1. So they're both written from this outside perspective. In the case of We Real Cool, obviously it's written about these pool players, and it can be inferred that Gwendolyn Brooks is not one of the pool players. She is an observer of these pool players. So it's written about this encounter, and it's kind of a description of what these boys think about, what these pool players think about themselves. And then if we look at Stay Free, the song by The Clash, it's written by The Clash about this one troubled kid who they know. Although it is partly autobiographical, and what I mean by that is they do write about themselves a little bit. So it's not completely an outside perspective on things. There is a little bit of an inside perspective because they know. But overall, it's about looking at someone's life and kind of commenting on the state of it. And the reason that this is important is because it kind of sets a tone. It sets a conversational tone between the author and the subject matter, whether that's an actual verbal conversation that could happen, like for instance within the Clash's song. And I give an example here from the song "You Were Down the Crown, Planning Your Next Move." So you could hear that kind of conversational aspect of the song. They could be conversing with each other face to face. And then in the case of We Real Cool, it's more of a non-verbal kind of conversation. The poem is about these kids and what they think. So they give off this vibe. This is what the vibe that Gwendolyn is kind of reacting to, writing about. And then again, it's important because they're both describing what they see in the lives of others, and commenting on the states of their lives. Which kind of brings me to my next point, that it's kind of both of these pieces of art are encapsulating of the stereotypical teenager in the teenage life. So number one, they both discuss leaving school in some manner, whether it's in We Real Cool, as you can see on the top kind of middle there, it says We Real Cool, we left school, and then it goes on and on. So again, presumably these kids either cut class or dropped out of school altogether. At least that's how I interpret it. I doubt that it's just like after their school day, they're hanging out at the pool house. I think they went and they dropped out of school or they're cutting class. And then that can also be seen in the Clash's song. We met when we were in school, never took no shit from no one, we weren't fools, the teacher says we're done, and then dumb, pardon me, and then it goes on to say how they were kicked out of school. And then another point, number two, is they're both about getting into trouble in some sort. So if we look at the Clash's song, this verse is about how the subject of the song, it says go on a nicking spree, so he stole, shoplifted, whatever it may be. And it says each of you get 3 years in Brixton, which is a reference to being thrown into jail. And then this is what I found really interesting, was the word choice that kind of leads me to believe that the poem We Real Cool is about getting into trouble. It says, we lurk late, we strike straight, we sing sin, we thin gin. And it goes on after that. But I thought the word choice of lurk was pretty interesting, because, you know, it kind of says to me that's more than just hanging out late. You know, people all the time hang out late with their friends, but lurk kind of has like a sinister, maybe they're doing something illegal kind of vibe to me. So I thought that was a very interesting word choice. Yeah, so basically the way that Gwendolyn Brooks described it in her poem, these kids are up to no good. You know, it's assumed that they're kids and that they shouldn't be consuming alcohol, but it mentions the consumption of, in this case, gin. So both in the song and in the poem, that you have people that are up to no good, which kind of brings me to my final point, which is that these can be interpreted as cautionary tales, or at least that's how one of the ways I interpreted them. And I think to really reinforce this, it's important to look at the last line in both the poem and the song. We can start with the poem. So basically, at the end of We Real Cool, it says, or Gwendolyn rather says, we jazz June, we die soon. And I think this is like kind of the perfect encapsulation of like the teenage outlook on life. You know, they think they're invincible, they want to live these quick lives with full lives. They want to live full lives, but they want them, you know, they never think far ahead into the future. And there's that phrase, that famous phrase, you'd rather burn out than fade away. I think that's very indicative of the teenage lifestyle. And then if we go and look at the song, the last line of the song, it says, but go easy, step lightly, stay free. So throughout the song, the Clash mentions how this person went to jail and they kind of lost part of their life. So I think this is just saying, like, maybe change a little, you know, try to stay free, live life live a good life but stay free. And I think there's kind of a correlation between these two pieces of art. Um, Warning about living this kind of lifestyle where, you'll die soon if you keep this up, or in the case of the Clash, you'll go back to jail if you keep this up. So you should maybe change the way you think about things, change the way you do things. And that's the end of that. Um, so kind of to recap here, the poem "We Real Cool" by Gwendolyn Brooks and the Clash's song "Stay Free" are similar because they're written from an outside perspective. They're written about young people, the struggle with young people and young people's outlook on life. And then they can be interpreted as cautionary tales. And again, they are presented very differently, but I think that's a valid interpretation, at least in my opinion. And then here's some of the sources I used. If you want to go check them out, that'd be cool. It's just the poem, the song, and some information about the authors and the song itself. I'll try to remember to put them either in the discussion board post or on my website. So yeah, thanks for listening.